He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, this is The Alex Marlow Show. Thanks to all of you for being here. One thing I like to do sometimes is when I have sponsored the show and there's a news hook so I can introduce them to you with some context. Sometimes things just work out really nice. So Angel Studios, one of the sponsors of the show, angel.com/Marlow, they've got a movie out, King of Kings. It's actually broken the biblical box office record. And we had a story of this at Breitbart News. And it's really fun for me to be able to cover stuff that is also kind of interconnected with the show. And this just happened. I just looked down. I was looking at what John Nolte's working on, and he's working on a story about Angel Studios, our sponsor. So it's animated film King of Kings. It's in 3,200 theaters right now, and it came in second at the box office this week and broke a box office record for biblical-based movies. The biggest opening for biblical animated film ever, $19 million. That's monstrous. So it's really cool. And it beat people like Rami Malek, who won the Oscar for the Freddie Mercury movie, whatever that was called. He had a movie out that came in third. Warfare, which Nolte was raving about, that came in fourth. The Blumhouse horror movie Drop, which Nolte also liked, came in fifth. So this thing is just hunting it. It's doing an amazing job. So it lost everything other than Minecraft. It beat everything other than Minecraft. And it just shows you these people are not joking around. So Angel Studio, good folks over there. They're working hard to try to bring you content that is contra the Hollywood just value system that has been such a cesspool over the years, really. So angel.com/Marlow for more. Of course, they have Sound of Freedom. They have a bunch of other movies. They're working with Mike Rowe on some stuff. It is also a chance for you to choose what they do next, which is fun. So you can vote on their upcoming projects. So it's just a great way to support people who are trying to provide a counterweight to Hollywood's negativity on our culture. So good stuff. Congratulations to the Angel Studio crowd, angel.com/Marlow for that. And we do need to counter Hollywood because they're so lost. They're so nuts. I was looking around because I was just fascinated from yesterday's show. Those of you who missed it, I played this clip of Taylor Lorenz, who is the formerly Washington Post reporter, who was just she was absolutely down bad for Luigi. Some of you are younger will know that expression. I played this clip of her. She's a deep sexual fetish for this guy who shot a healthcare executive, and you could really see it. It was really kind of disgusting, and CNN played along with it. And I listened back to the interview. I thought maybe he was in on a joke, the CNN reporter. And no, it's pretty clear the CNN reporter is very supportive of this. And the left's just fetishism of a assassin. It goes on and on and on. We had a story on a rock star. I don't really want to give him publicity at the moment, but a rock star, Breitbart News, who was saying we need an army of Luigis in support of the alleged United Healthcare CEO assassin, who, again, remember, was not a United Healthcare CEO customer, and people just like him because he's handsome or something. So just gushing from mainstream reporters, feeling like it's okay to kill people because they made money. And it just shows you the left's values are death and our values are life. They are a death cult in a lot of ways. Think about the way they treat abortions, where it's just nonstop. Every abortion is good. You want to shout your abortion. And they like the idea of assassinating people. That's where they've normalized violence throughout the country. We talked about it, brought you example after example on yesterday's show. And it is inevitably what has happened as Hollywood has just been allowed to, with impunity, just get more toxic and negative over time. And it's time to push back. So any way you can do that, I think, is good. So encouraging people who you think bring some light into the world, wherever that may be, always a positive thing to do, because we can't let Hollywood just completely dominate as they have in the past. We're starting to push back, and that's good. But that said, the Democrats are so weak, you never know who could be their next presidential nominee. Maybe it'll be Jon Stewart of The Daily Show. So talk about a blast from the past. They have no forward-thinking vision. I was thinking about this with a lot of the clips I played on yesterday's show, where we had President Cory Booker, we had President Elizabeth Warren, we had President Bernie Sanders. They're trying to maybe push Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think she's getting lazy now and just sort of fat and happy these days. I don't think she really has got it in her. But you know what's interesting with Cortez is that her and Sanders are going around, they're doing these events, and they're making it seem like they've got this huge groundswell of support, but it really isn't exactly what it meets the eye, because what they're doing is they're trying to get her and him to show up at events where there is a musical act, where there's other celebrities. So other people are showing up not just to see them, but to see the other celebrities. And I think that that's something that's quite noteworthy, because it is another form of AstroTurf. And they're quite clever in that way, is that they're able to figure out ways to make it look like they've got this, the 12,000 people. Not really, it's just 12,000 people to see musical artists. And also they get some political talking points along the way. And there are a lot of people on the left who are confused and they want to push back against Trump. And they just don't have much. And Trump continues to rack up victories. We learned a Canadian singer named Bells Larson. I was not familiar with Bells Larson, but it is a trans individual. And I don't know which direction, so I won't try to guess wrong because I don't want to misgender the transgenders, but I don't know if this is male to female or female to male. You really can't tell, just purely androgynous. But this trans singer has now canceled a U.S. tour because of our visa rules stipulating you have to state your actual sex on your documentation. So if you think that is an L for Trump, then you and I are not coming from the same place, because from my vantage point, Trump is definitely benefiting from having the antithesis to chaos. Remember that I read from that manifesto of that crazy guy. This is still just tunning it in traffic on Breitbart. People are very interested in this story from yesterday that I brought up. This guy from Wisconsin who had he'd killed his family allegedly, but really the design was to eventually kill Trump. And he talked about how he actually wanted chaos. And that's the word I use all the time, that all these people like chaos. That's the left's. That is their design. They want taken to an extreme. There's authoritarianism, but there's also anarchism. And a lot of them really do want an anarchic society where it's totally chaos. And when you see people who refuse to list their birth gender and would rather not have a tour where they get to come to the United States of America, greatest country in the world, to do a tour where they make money singing to other left-wingers who like their transness, because they don't want to put their biological sex on their passport, is just such a level of chaos that we don't need to indulge it. It has been a choice that we've indulged it to this point, and we now no longer need to do that. And credit to President Trump for starting to restore some of this and having the guts to keep going, because the anything to make the world more organized and less chaotic, generally going to be a positive thing. All right, so the big thing I want to get to today is rare earth minerals that are affected by China export. There's been a China ban on rare earths into the United States, allegedly. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on because the media reported this over the weekend, and the White House says fake news. We reached out to the White House for a clear explanation. I did not get a clear explanation, but I'm operating under the assumption that at least some of rare earth minerals that China has that are exported to the U.S. for our electric vehicles, et cetera, green energy, military tech, that China is withholding them. Now, what this looks like exactly, as we discussed on yesterday's show, China's economy is not in great shape, and the fact that they are not going to be able to export all this stuff to the United States is going to harm them as well. So they're not really looking to do this. They're not in a good position to have a trade war with us, which is, I think, partially why Trump is trying to move now. But I think it's really important to talk about what the rare earths are, and there's some additional content, I'll tell you. The Breitbart Fight Club, I talked to Colin Medine, our tech editor, about this today. But some of the key details of our rare earths is that we use them in all sorts of things, from smartphones to MRI machines to military drones. But one thing that's noteworthy is they're not all rare. They're elements that are, a lot of them are on the periodic table and they're hard to pronounce and you don't really know exactly what they do. And there's many of them, but some of them are actually quite common. Some of them are actually more common than even things like copper, which is all over the place. But the issue is they're hard to harvest or they're expensive to harvest. And this is where you start, if you get ahead a little bit and see, why are we in this position? is that they're rare not because of their abundance or quantity. It's because of the processing and refining. And this has been one of the major errors that we've made in the United States, is that we don't process and refine rare earths. A lot of them are in the Earth's crust. You can drill, you can dig into the surface. A lot of them are in the ocean. They're on the surface of the ocean. A lot of them are in countries where we're allied with those countries, perhaps countries that are up for purchase, like Greenland. But the problem is that we don't go and get them. And we don't go and get them for some reason that will be familiar to all of you. It's really the environmentalism. It's the environmental lobby that has made it so that it's harder to drill, it's harder to get permits, there's so much red tape, and it's discouraged us from developing that industry on our own, mining our own rare earths to the extent that we should, and making sure that our allies are doing so as well. So what's ended up happening is that China, that does not care about environmental impact at all, biggest polluters on Earth by a mile, that they're just the ones who have completely dominated this market. And it's one of these things where John Hayward is a big story for us at Breitbart News, where he goes through some of the detail. China has 30% of the rare earth on the planet. Okay, so that's a lot, but they do 85% of the production, and that's down from about 97% of the production. Why do we allow for this to happen? This is, again, purely our either ignorance, negligence, or the fact that we were intentionally allowing this to happen because the green lobby has been so powerful in the United States, and they have not wanted us to be able to mine here because of environmental degradation. They're much more comfortable having China degrade the environment because that's, I guess, they can look at themselves in the mirror when that happens. So it is a pure political partisanship that's gotten us into this mess. And that's a huge point of clarity that we need to make, and why what Trump is doing is so important in terms of waging this trade war, staking it out now, dying on this hill now, as John Carney has said on this show. We're dying on it now because we can't let this continue to go on. We have to stop this because it is such rank hypocrisy by us that we will not tap our own resources. And we would prefer to have China, communist China, authoritarian China, with no freedom, with no fair judicial process, with slavery, with genocides, with no free press, to allow for them to continue to dominate in this world where we're dependent on rare earth for so many things. I mean, so much tech, so much biotech, all of this, a lot of what the development of the future, military tech, we are vulnerable to China. It has to stop. It has to stop now. So it's noteworthy that it is not really rare. That's really important to start out. And the issue is how they're mined. And we've just simply been unwilling to mine at the level we need to mine to keep up. And that is because of the environmentalists. So who saw this coming before we got in this mess? It's really noteworthy to note who saw this coming. Donald Trump saw this coming. Peter Navarro saw it coming. There's been a lot of discussion. Peter Navarro, a lot of people complaining about Navarro lately. They don't like his trade policies. They don't like his trade messaging. But he was someone who warned on this front. Another group who warned about this, Breitbart News. John Carney, when he joined up with us 7 or 8 years ago, his first major investigation he did for us was he connected with the rare earths industry in the United States. There's a big executive out here in LA who's friends with Andrew Breitbart before Andrew passed, and they connected and they did a big deep dive into how important this is. And we allowed ourselves to continue to be vulnerable. China actually pulled rare earths from Japan in 2010 over some political squabble they were having. And because they had that squabble, it should have warned us that we can't let ourselves be in that position. And you have to plan ahead on this because, as John Hayward of Breitbart puts it for us, it's a painstaking and expensive process to be able to get the rare earths. It takes years to do it. And some of them are quite heavy. Some of them are very cumbersome to deal with. Others, not so much. There's some complicated stuff. But we're not making any effort, and we haven't. And what Trump is going to do here, whether or not there is some negotiation that's done where we end up getting the rare earths back and some of the tariffs come off, the main thing is it allows us to have this conversation with urgency and immediacy, that we cannot continue to be dependent on these things for our technology and have China basically have a global monopoly on it. Here's a line from Hayward's lead story that we have as we're recording. At this moment, the only light rare earth mining and processing facility in the Western Hemisphere is located in Mountain Pass, California. It reached a new high in 2024 by producing 45,000 metric tons of rare earth oxides. China produced about 270,000 metric tons of oxides in the same year, so that's 6 times. So we have one facility in the whole Western Hemisphere to process some of the lighter rare earths. And it's here in California. I didn't even know about that. Did you know about that? Did you know that the only rare earth facility was here? And did you know that China still produces 6 times as much as this facility on their own? So it's just wild. It's unacceptable, and we cannot allow for this process to continue. So what's to be done about it? First thing, buy Greenland. Obviously, Greenland's got a lot. We can get it, ramp that up. Second, we got to start ramping stuff up here regardless of what happens with China. And we've got to compel other countries to work with us on it. Canada, Russia, other places that they've got the rare earth. We've got to keep forging those relationships. The other thing that's interesting that Colin suggests on the Fight Club show today, the Breitbart Confidential, my other show, is he suggests that we need to do some space mining. I don't know how complicated that is, and I did not have enough time to bone up on the space mining as is, but I like the idea of the space mining because the space mining will allow for our new astronauts, Katy Perry, Gail King, who's Bezos' girlfriend. It's the who looks like Blair White, the online commentator. People were pointing that out. That makes sense to me. Those of you who know what I'm talking about. And it is it'd be great to have them up there mining. They were out there on the edge of space for 11 minutes. They didn't have a helmet. It was just something that was very, very interesting to me and odd is that that took place. And I don't know what to make of it because we talked about this on yesterday. I've got email on this. We'll get to email at the end of the show, but I still don't know whether or not I like it because I admire the publicity stunt of Jeff Bezos sending up 7 women into space, some of them celebrities from all different walks of life, but they didn't really go into space. They only went up for 11 minutes onto the edge of space. They didn't have to wear a helmet, and they came down in this very clean looking, it's this little pod, very space age, futuristic, and they're getting a lot of attention online, and not all of it's positive. Model Emily Ratajkowska, who is famous for showing her breasts in a music video about a decade ago, and was able to parlay that into a big career online. She's very upset. She says it's beyond parody, saying you care about Mother Earth and it's about Mother Earth and you're going up in a spaceship that is built and paid for by a company that's single-handedly destroying the planet. So they're mad about the green nature of it. So this is so enjoyable. I do have a good time when you got the left-on-left violence, when you got the Greens fighting with the other Greens, when you got the Hollywood crowd fighting with the tech elite. That's really fun. She says, look at the state of the world and think about how many resources went into putting these women into space. And they weren't even really in space. For what? What was the marketing there? I'm disgusted. So I always get my futuristic technology, innovation, entrepreneurship advice from topless models. That's where I tend to look. But I'm just a guy, and I'm not any expert in this field. So Katy Perry saying, as I mentioned yesterday, I feel connected, the strong, divine, feminine. But again, they're all pawns of world's richest man or second richest man, right? So it's not really that feminine, is it? As I said yesterday, were the women developing the rockets or probably a team of guys? Maybe a couple women there, who knows? Maybe. But hey, I like women in STEM. I married one of them. So you could do it. But it's all such a big manipulation that I can't help but think it's such a blast. This is a wild one. You won't even believe this when I tell it to you, but there was a comment online that Katy Perry had returned from space in her super cool space outfit. And Wendy's, the fast food chain, the Wendy's burgers, Wendy's replied to this, can we send her back? And Wendy, whoever's running the Wendy's social media feed, was making fun of Katy Perry all day online. I don't know why. I tried to see if there was a long-standing beef between, beef, get it? You guys like that? It's a pun. That was not an intended pun also. I'm just that quick. So there's, Misty liked that one. The Wendy making fun of Katy Perry all day long and suggesting that Katy Perry should be blasted back into space and talking about how they didn't bring any cheeseburgers up in the moon, Wendy saying, I'm a woman, send me to space. It's just very odd, but fun. And can we have fun? I think so. So I think I'm pro sending Katy Perry and Gayle King to space, especially if it's triggering the Greens. That's a really nice added benefit to it. But I don't understand the Wendy. I have not had Wendy's in many years. Is Wendy's good? Some people tell me that Wendy's is the top fast food burger. But here's the problem. The Wendy's in my neighborhood is next to the In-N-Out. And I've talked to you guys about the glories of the In-N-Out. It is the ultimate fast food, not just because it's great, which it is, and not just because it's owned by Christian conservatives, which it is, but also because it is cheap. In-N-Out is very cheap. And so those of you who've not been out here to California, you have to try it. Don't expect the best burger in the world. You'll get a good burger. But the issue is it's also inexpensive, which is nice when you've got 1 million children, as I do. Okay, so that's it. That's where we're at. So we got rare earths going to space, and I want Katy Perry to mine for the rare earths, and that will solve a lot of our problems. But that's the big thing that's going on. Part of the trade war, part of the benefits of the trade war that we're seeing is we're going to continue to see reshoring. We're going to continue to see manufacturing return to the United States. We learned that AMD, which is a major chip processor, one of the biggest chip processors in the world, is going to be manufacturing chips in a new facility in Arizona. First time AMD has ever made chips in this country, and they're going to make it in Arizona. And it's one of these things, I pointed this out. It works for pharmaceuticals. It works for high tech. It takes a while to build these facilities. They're very expensive facilities. And with the idea of Donald Trump potentially winning a trade war, potentially keeping tariffs on, and with a bunch of MAGA guys warming up in the bullpen, JD, et cetera, maybe Trump gets another term. We're still working on that, 2028. This could be the norm for a long time. This could be the new normal. This could be a big for the rest of the century. Who knows? So a lot of these countries are companies are going to think we need to get the chips going in the United States. We need to get the pharmaceuticals going in the United States. And they're going to go to lower taxes, red states, and they're going to set up shop there. This is very, very cool. And it is a big deal. Now, they're not based in the United States, but I will tell you that one of the sponsors of the show is a made in America manufactured product. That's Solaire infrared grills, besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com for Solaire. I was using it last night. My parents are here, and I've got an interesting week going. I've got no childcare, which is tough because I got a bunch of jobs. Mrs. Dr. Marlowe, she's got to go to the doctor's office every day. So no child. It is spring break for Nanny Carolina. So I've got all the babies. And I wanted to give my parents a nice treat because they're helping me with the kids all day. And so I got the pork chops. You guys don't know what you're missing if you don't get a good bone-in pork chop every once in a while. I cooked it very steak-like. I made an apple butter. It was just ridiculous. I'm becoming a gourmand, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know the word, then you can look it up. That's what I'm becoming. I made the apple butter. First time trying it. It was amazing. But I will tell you what I did with the pork chops, cooked them slow. It's my favorite move. And then when it was time to sear, I got out the best hot grill in the market, Solaire infrared grill, made in America, high quality stainless steel products, besthotgrill.com. And I seared those things off. I did the grill marks this time. I don't always go for the grill mark because sometimes it's a little bit of a hoax, but I did them this time, got the grill marks going. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We had a great night. And because there were so many other adults in the house at dinner time, it was kind of stress-free because I didn't have to do any baths or I didn't have to make any pasta with butter and cheese. Pleasant night. And it was all thanks to Solaire infrared grill. So besthotgrill.com if you want to learn more, and you should. Great product, great people. Okay. I bring up a lot of I want to point out that Trump's approval rating is surging. John Nolte has a story on this for us at Breitbart News. Highest number since he was inaugurated in January, 54% poll. I brought up another strong one, and this is coming from a Daily Mail has this story from a Daily Mail JL Partners. Daily Mail is alternately hot and cold on Trump, so I don't look into any of that politically. But President Trump's approval is basically unchanged throughout the signal news cycle and through the trade war news cycle. People trust him. And that gives you the ability to keep doing the things that he's doing, keep running up the score, and keep trying to do things like banning the trans singers. It allows him to continue to be tough on illegal immigration. It allows him to continue to wage the trade wars. So speaking of illegal immigration, I know this was a little bit yesterday, so I didn't lead the show with it, even though I have to admit, this is kind of on me. Misty had pulled clips of the Nayib Bukele meeting in the Oval Office, and I did not get to them. And so that's sort of on me, but I do want to play some of these. But first, why don't we do our onesie clip to make sure I've reset the board here? Let's make sure.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Okay, it's good. We do that. This is how we reset to make sure I've got the videos working. All right, so this is Nayib Bukele, who is the president of El Salvador, a world's coolest dictator, as they call him. And he is helping us get rid of some of the bad guys. There's some great footage from the Oval Office. I do want to share this in case you guys missed it and offer commentary for those of you who saw it. Let's check it.
Would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens.
Okay, so those of you who are not picking up the context already, so Stephen Miller's talking, the Oval Office scene, Rubio's on the couch, Pam Bondi's on the couch, JD's there, Nayib Bukele's off screen there. You can see Susie Wiles in the background. You can see Kristi Noem in the background, and a bunch of media folks as well. So this is a big meeting with the president of El Salvador. And we're talking about the El Salvadorian illegal immigrant who was deported because of gang connections that the entire left has determined was some sort of a bad move. Let's let Miller cook.
As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here.
His clarity is, this is the best way to communicate if you want to accomplish stuff, is he speaks so directly, he speaks so declaratively that he is saying that the order was for him to be deported. The district judge tried to veto the executive branch and command the executive branch to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen. This is all very direct. Yeah, Mike Waltz is there as well. I didn't recognize him. So you get the whole group. Miller's holding court, and he's explaining, he's presenting talking points to all of them as well, because he's got this completely down, and everyone else should be messaging this crisply when they're asked about it, and they will be.
Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme Court's asking to...
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with an ever living here.
So this is good too. So this is new information. I'm just going to talk over this and let this run out because he's not coming up on the volume here. If he comes back, we're just going to deport him again, thanks to the Supreme Court ruling. So the left is basically spinning their wheels, tilting at windmills, not meals, windmills. What's a windmill? It's not a thing. Okay. All right. Maybe it's when one of the birds flies into the windmill and you go pick it up from underneath the windmill after the windmill killed it. Maybe one of those bald eagles that we're going to bring back with science. So a lot of dire wolf doodle talk in the Marlowe household. So whoever brought that up on the show yesterday, that was pretty genius, because it was my whole family was amused by that. So around the dinner table, we're eating our pork chops, talking about the dire wolf doodle, which would appear in L.A. No doubt about it. We're going to get everything becomes a doodle in L.A. You mix everything with a poodle. That's what you do out here. All right, let's see. I got one more. So Bukele talks a little bit as well, and he's got some nice clarity here. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it.
Okay, Misty, I can't pause it. Can you pause it for me? Because I want to emphasize that. Yeah, so he says, I have to smuggle him to the United States. And it's so funny because he looks super cool. He's got the cool beard. He's got the cool haircut. He's got the T-shirt with the jacket look, which is not everyone can pull it off. You actually got to be genuinely cool to do that. I think a lot of people who are not cool try that, and it doesn't work as well. So, but it's pretty sweet look. And he's great body language here. He's very relaxed. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to smuggle him back to the United States. It's so great. They're making a mockery of the left. And that's why I love to report to you when there's a 54% approval rating, things like that, because it allows for this to continue, because it shows enough of the country is with these guys. Roll it, Misty.
How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside of Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so they can go back to being the murder capital of the world. No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back of places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
Do you know how lucky we are? We've never seen this before. I've been following politics obsessively for going on 25 years. And I've been editor-in-chief of Breitbart for 11 years. I've worked at Breitbart for 17 years. We've never had an administration that speaks plainly and truthfully to the American public. There's always some hemming and hawing. There's always some agenda. He's an El Salvadorian. We deported him. He doesn't have a right to be here. And he's not getting sent back. There should be no confusion. They don't get it right in the messaging. There's always something off. Either they're politically on the left and they will not give us the truth, or they're on the right and they're afraid of the media. We've never had this experience before where we're actually witnessing the good guys explain themselves in an effective way. Speaking of, I got one more Miller clip. This was him outside of the White House explaining to the media what's really happening. Can we play this one that's marked Miller here? I still can't play anything on my screen there, Misty.
This administration is never going to apologize for using the power of the state to keep men, women, and children from being savagely murdered and beaten. If we release known and suspected MS-13 and trained to Aragua, and then there's another Jocelyn Hungry, then whose responsibility is that going to be? Do you think that we're going to sit around wringing our hands, wondering if, maybe we should, release this person, give them a little bit of extra time, give them a little bit extra chance to plead their case, and then what? They kidnap somebody, they slit their throat, they shoot them in the head, and we say, well, at least the illegal alien got due process. They're here illegally. The only place that they deserve to go is to some country other than our country. And it's not a statistic. These are real lives. These are real families. There's whole neighborhoods in Los Angeles controlled by illegal alien Mexican street gangs, entire neighborhoods where you have to live in fear because of individuals here illegally engaged in extortion and crime. Not to mention the fentanyl. You have cartels that have functional control over the entire northern territory in Mexico who are pumping fentanyl, lacing our drugs with this chemical. Children are ending up dead. They're going out to a weekend party. They think they're taking something safe, and they get a heart attack and they die by the thousands. So we're not going to apologize for doing something about that. And I just wish we lived in a country where the media gave 1/10 a damn as much about Americans who were murdered and brutalized and savagely killed, beaten to death, as they did about whether illegal aliens that we all agree are illegal aliens should get
a million days in court and a million trials and a million this and a million that. There's 15 million illegal aliens that violate into the country. If every one of them got the trial that you're asking for, it would take us centuries to remove them. Centuries. We've been talking about this in 300-400 years. Their great-great-great-grandchildren will be the ones representing.
All right, so that's it. So it's just everything there. It's brilliant. It's all so brilliantly summed up, so clearly stated. That's where we love Miller, and it's his points about how we are tolerating illegal alien gangs taking over our cities. And the left is more focused on whether or not some of the illegal alien gang members or gang-connected people get some sort of due process they're not entitled to over the victims of their crimes. And this, of course, the Jocelyn Ungarys of the world, the Laken Rileys, those who were murdered by illegal aliens, of course, they're ignored, but it goes beyond that. It's people whose entire lives are devastated from the downstream effects of things like fentanyl, things like their neighborhoods getting overrun. All of this cuts the American quality of life, and the left has protected them simply because they hate Trump and they feel like there's some sort of larger political play here, and we're not going to tolerate it. And him noting that if we gave due process as afforded to American citizens to all these illegal aliens, it would take hundreds of years to solve it. So unfortunately, it means there's going to be some people who were allowed to stay for too long, started a life here, that they're not going to get all of the protections of American citizens when we deport them. We need to have a strong stomach here, and we need to just move forward. Got to move ahead. We got to get this done, because this is not time for us to be overly empathetic to people who broke our laws to get here. This is time for us to be overly empathetic to Americans, which we've never had that before. This is the first time we're perhaps witnessing this, and it is something that ought to be highly encouraged, and we all need to be quite enthusiastic about this. I certainly am. I'll tell you one thing I'm also interested in and enthusiastic about is the prospect of something new happening with Spectrum. The media is broken. For decades, big cable and legacy media have filtered information to hide the truth. But thanks to podcasts, new media shows like this one, the truth can break through. So providing voices and views that legacy media outlets block from the air ought to be a priority. So how do we do that? Well, we got some friends who have a suggestion to your Congressman, President Trump. It is to try to wrestle out some new spectrum. Spectrum are these waves that you can't see that are how we get wireless internet. It's how we get cable. And Congress has the opportunity to do something about this. Big cable has sort of a monopoly right now in the way they control information. They can limit access to spectrum. So those invisible airwaves, power affordable wireless internet, and they force you into bundles, and they keep independent media out of reach. So what you can do if you're interested in a new way forward where there is more spectrum available, where there's spectrum sold, then you can go to stopthecableopoly.org. That's stopthecableopoly.org. You can learn more. The good folks over there encourage you to call your congressmen and senators, tell them to ask President Trump to sell more spectrum, but just check them out, see what information they've got, because their take is there's been a stranglehold on information coming from the big cable companies that have access to spectrum already. They don't want other upstarts to get access to it. And the good folks over at thecableopoly.org, they think that there should be another option. So check it out, and it'll be doing something nice for a sponsor, and you will get more informed of a big issue that will be coming up quite a bit, I think, throughout the year. All right, there's so much more going on in the news. We're going to divest from Harvard, taking money out of Harvard. I love that. There's a plan to finally claw back federal funding from NPR and PBS. I mean, it's so great, but I think I want to spend more time on that tomorrow. Why don't we do that? I want to get into some email here because I think that would be a nice thing, because a lot of you were emailing, and I'll tell you, a lot of it had to do with daylight savings time. A lot of daylight savings time content coming into aloha@alexmarlowe.com. I love reading all your emails, questions, comments, complaints, anything like that. I read them all. I enjoy them, and I'll try to bring some ones on the air that I think make sense to share with all of you. Okay, so John or Gene, it's got to be Gene Deeds. Regarding daylight saving time versus standard time, just change half an hour, then leave it all year round. What do you think about that? By the way, not my original idea. So we're going to move everything a half an hour. It just sounds like too much math. I mean, are we even doing math anymore? I mean, my kids are doing math. We got them in the math tutoring. They're doing well. I was good at math. That's a long story for a different day, but I was a math guy earlier. And then I think I got accelerated maybe too quickly. And then I started to have these real geniuses in my class who were doing, calculus BC, AP in the 8th grade. And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to hang with those guys. So maybe I should start reading and writing more. So that was kind of my arc. But I like the math, but it seems like a lot to ask people to do a half an hour shift. I have a very hard time thinking people are going to get on board with that, but I like the outside the box thinking. All right, Sue Gorney. Truthfully, I had no idea these female so-called rock stars and girlfriends took the Blue Horizon tourist jaunt. I think it's Blue Origin, not Blue Horizon, but that's interesting because the marketing didn't fully work. Took the Blue Horizon tourist jaunt until you mentioned on your show yesterday. As a woman, I could care less and certainly don't believe this stunt will encourage any young ladies to pursue careers in STEM fields. This was a tourist ride of no scientific importance except to show that women can unzip their flight suits halfway down while close to the edge of space. Yeah, so this is what I'm saying, though, is that it's an odd look that we acted like this was some sort of feminist achievement for 5 minutes when it was really a sex thing. We're selling sexy ladies, or I guess, to make it so that you have an interest in Jeff Bezos's rocket company. But that's also genius because it does sell. Sex does sell. So the marketing element of it to me does make some sense. So I think as a media person, I'm lightly positive on it. It's not elevating us. I don't think it is propelling younger women into STEM fields. I don't even know if we need to propel young women into STEM fields. I don't know. If they want to, sure, but I don't know if we need to, as a society, encourage more young women in STEM. I think we need to encourage people to make families. So I think that they can do STEM if they want. They should be free to do STEM. But I don't know if we need to be encouraging that. We should be encouraging not a lot of liberal arts. I think we should be discouraging that. So that's a fun conversation. But I don't think this was significant in the sense that other than we now know what Blue Origin is, any of us who are not paying attention. And I've given them a lot of attention on the show. And so that's good. All right, let's see. Alex in Clearwater, Florida. Dear Alex, I'm conflicted about the Blue Origin space mission. On one hand, Amazon employees don't even get an 11-minute lunch break in reference to the 11-minute flight, which seems like a slap in the face to them, but it's another opportunity for Lauren Sanchez to televise her boobs to all America. So that's good. So on the negative side, it's really kind of mean to the $11 an hour Amazon employees who don't get a lunch break. But the positive is you get to see Lauren Sanchez with a tight shirt on. If she's your type, and I imagine for some of you she is, then that's great. Congratulations to you, because and we're not anti-boob on the Marlowe Show. I'd say that'd be mean. I don't think that makes sense. We don't have to be too prudish around here. So, all right, David Johnson. Is it possible that the miracle of life is really the driving force that the political left is against more than anything else? I think this is in reference to my story yesterday, which did incredibly well at Breitbart News, where I highlighted the zinc spark that takes place at the moment of conception. So literally a flash of light, if you have a specific microscope and camera that you're able to observe it. A specific flash of light takes place at the moment of conception, which I found very interesting, as did Mrs. Dr. Marlowe. And I brought that to you on the show. Did very well on Breitbart.com when we covered that as a news item. So David continues. When you showed the moment of fertilization, it was enlightening to me. That was the point. That's why I showed it. Not because the miracle is a new realization, but because it seems all the things that are most important to the extreme left go against life and the promotion of this most fundamental reality. That actually connects to my point about the STEM fields. As much as women should be free to be in the STEM fields, again, I'm married to a woman in STEM field. So if my girls want to go in the STEM field, they'll be fine with me. But the encouraging things that get people further away from creation of the family, I do think gets us further away from God. And I think that overall, the obsession with career, I think hard work makes for a satisfying life. I think this is an expensive world. You need money, and 2 incomes is probably preferable for most people than one, because it's very hard to have a great lifestyle on 1 income if you want a bunch of kids. So I understand all of the approaches. But overall, I do like the idea of encouraging people to create life. And that's one thing I'm trying to do on the show on a regular basis. I've done this as long as people give me the microphone. And to understand that the left is somehow, they recoil from this. They're fundamentally against the promotion of starting families. They want to prioritize career. They want to prioritize fun. They want to prioritize travel. They prioritize all this stuff instead of family creation. And why is that? They also prioritize abortion. So they're kind of a death cult. And just think, if they get enough power, you know what they're going to do. They're going to have more assisted suicides. They're going to have more normalization of death. And that is not everyone on the left, not every liberal. But I think if you take it to extreme, that's where they're heading with this. And I think this is what David has identified. He said it's really scary, but can it be true? And if it is true, how can it possibly be the belief held by so many of our countrymen? Does the devil exist? Is it possible that the promotion of evil is really the cause? Can we say that out loud? I think it is. And I think that the devil, the same way God reveals himself in mysterious ways, the devil does as well. And it is, I think that if you look at the amount of rape and murder and poverty in the world and the amount of corruption, it is very hard for me to conclude that there isn't a nefarious presence that is guiding some of it. I don't know what the literal devil looks like. I don't think it's a kind of necessarily a red horn guy with a tail and a trident. But I will tell you that there is that negative evil force that does compel certain people and is present in everyday life for a lot of people. We need to be aware of that. We need to fight against it and guard against it. Fight against it with godliness. And I think a strong family, strong individuals with strong families, that's the ideal. That's what I preach on the Marlowe Show. And that's a good way to round out today. Aloha at alexmarlowe.com. We got good stuff for you cooked up for the rest of the week. Thanks for sharing the show with friends, 5-star reviews, comments, all of that. I love them and I can't get enough. And we will talk to you. Oh, yeah. Thank you to producer Misty. Talk to you guys tomorrow.